It's Wednesday, the 20th of March, 2024. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum, coming to you live from Radio 1 FM 90. Radio 1 is broadcasting from the Central Building along the True Street here in the heart of our city, Kampala. But we're also live on our website, which is www.radio1fm90.com. Now, when that website opens, you look for the icon with the word Listen Live. Click on it, and you'll be able to listen to this radio station. You can also listen to us via the different radio listening apps, which can be obtained from the Google stores of your smartphone. Download any, look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you'll be able to listen to us from wherever you are on this planet. Radio 1 is also broadcasting live on DSTV. Our audio channel there is 897, and on Star Times, our audio channel is 97. Two ways to contribute to this discussion. One of the ways is to send us a message via the WhatsApp line, which is 0703 090 090. Please send a text message. Do not send an audio clip because we will not be able to play it. It could be a comment or question. The guest in studio will be able to respond to you. The other option is actually to call in. Time allowing, I'll open the phone lines for you to do so. My name is Kenneth Lukwaga Anderson, your host. And today we'll be looking at the 22-year journey of the National Agricultural Advisory Services, NAADS. What are the milestones, challenges, and opportunities going forward? Now, 22 years ago, the government of Uganda decided to put in place this entity, NAADS, as one of the key pillars in transforming agriculture. NAADS has been in operation, yes, for 22 years, and we have already seen some of the things they have been doing, but there are also questions about how they have been performing, and of course, they have also met challenges, although they also say there are opportunities looking at what they have already done. Well, the story is long, but I have in studio Dr. Samuel Mugasi, who is the Executive Director, to share with us on this 22-year-old journey. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Mugasi.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners.
Well, let's begin with a background. NAADS, National Agricultural and Advisory Services. What exactly are you, and what have you been doing over the last 22 years?
Yeah, thank you so much. And once again, good evening, listeners. It's my pleasure this evening to be in this studio to share with you our journey as NAADS. To take you back this journey, as you have heard from the moderator, NAADS was formed about 22 years ago, initially as an agency that was under one of the interventions of the Plan for Modernization of Agriculture. If you recall those days around in the late 90s, there was what we called the Plan for Eradication of Poverty, the PEP. The PEP. Poverty Eradication Action Plan. So under the PEP, there was what we called the Plan for Modernization of Agriculture, which had several pillars. And one of the pillars was about agriculture extension and education. And that was the responsibility of NAADS then. There were other pillars like research, which led to the formation of the National Agricultural Research Organization. There were other pillars on infrastructure, marketing, name it. So NAADS then was birthed at that time in 2001 with the main focus on providing agriculture extension services. So NAADS was the main provider of extension services and advisory services across the country. And that meant that NAADS had to be present in all parts of the country up to the sub-county level. So we had extension workers at the sub-county level. We had extension workers in charge of crops, extension workers in charge of livestock, and also fisheries. So we were present up to the grassroots level. And at that time, the main focus was really educating farmers, providing information to farmers, being the main provider of extension services. And the main focus was really to build the capacity of farmers. And NAADS focused mainly on what we called farmer institutional development, where we built farmer groups, because the strength of farmers lies in them working together. And that helped them to be able to form groups, and through these groups, they were able to receive trainings, extension services, but also to be supported on areas of enterprise development. And indeed, if you go around this country, you will find some existing groups that were formed in those early 2000s. We still find those NAADS groups that were formed 20 years ago, still running strong and being able to engage in agricultural production. The other area of focus at that time was technology promotion. That is why up to today you hear of things like NAADS goats, NAADS bananas, you hear of the NAADS cassava. Why? That is because during those early days of NAADS did a very fantastic job in introducing new varieties. The bogoyas, you have heard of bogoya NAADS. You will hear of mbuziza NAADS. Why? Because NAADS at that time had the responsibility of bringing new technologies, new breeds to the farmers. And indeed, those days, we saw the expansion of production of cassava, bananas. That's when we began to saw improved breeds of goats, like the Savannah goats, the Boer goats, through the NAADS interventions. And up to today, you will go in some villages in across different parts of the country, and you will find those varieties of bogoya. You will find those cassava varieties that we introduced. So that is our initial part of the journey, where we introduced varieties, introduced new breeds, and that was really to establish a new foundation for agricultural modernization in the country. And that really helped to introduce the concept of doing business, farming as a business. Previously in Uganda, farming was just for food production. But NAADS brought in the element of doing farming as a business. So because part of the training we did at the time was to train farmers about profitability. And through our advisory services, we would provide training on and capacity building to farmers to be able to understand that if I do 1 acre of maize, I will earn so much. If I do 1 acre of coffee, I will earn so much. So we took the training to the level of being able to know how much you put in terms of costs and how much you get out as earnings. So that was the level at which we were operating, to be able to tell farmers that, look, if you are to go into farming, go in with a chibalo, as we hear these days the president also talking. So ours was to make sure that we bring information and knowledge to farmers to be able to engage in farming as a business, not just for purposes of food production, but also to engage in it for purposes of earning. And since that time, the word farming as a business started taking root across the country. So that took us up to around 2012, 13, when we began to have a discussion of reforming the agricultural extension services. Because the challenge at that time was that the pillars of PMA were not moving together at the same pace. While NAADS was adequately financed and also narrow, the other pillars of PMA, like infrastructure, like marketing, were not adequately financed. So our work was being dragged backwards because the entire value chain was not adequately supported.
So there was more production,
but areas of value addition, processing, and marketing were left out. And therefore, and in agriculture, if you don't address the entire value chain, then you have challenges, because then you have no market, you can't add value, you have post-harvest losses. So that was a big challenge for us as NAADS, because we are moving along in the value chain. Ours was supporting extension services and ensuring that we increase production and productivity. But the other aspects of the value chain were left behind. And therefore, we started encountering challenges. Like, for example, people would ask you, we have produced a lot of bananas, where do we sell? We have our goats here, where do we sell them? We have produced a lot of maize, it is rotting in our homes. So along the way, we experienced challenges of lack of coherence and coordination along the value chain. And indeed, that is why, as we started moving forward, we realized that there was need to begin to strengthen the entire value chain. So as we came into 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, now we began a discussion of reforming the agriculture extension system. And viewers will recall that around 2000, and rather listeners, 2014, NAADS was reformed, and the extension function was taken to the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, where a new department in charge of extension was created, and NAADS was left with the role of mainly supporting production and productivity by providing inputs, but also supporting value addition. So that was a major change, a major shift in our mandate, whereby we shaded off the function of extension services, and now we started focusing on supporting production and also value addition. That was a paradigm shift that now saw us starting to move full scale in supporting farmers with the inputs, breeds, so on and so forth. That is now at the stage that we started supporting now specific enterprises like tea, like fruits, like bananas, maize, cassava, etc. And in this specific intervention, we were focusing on providing planting materials. Like for tea, we made a huge investment in tea, in the sense that we distributed up to 500 million seedlings of tea across the country, especially in Western Uganda, Midwestern, and parts of West Nile. And as I will be saying later, we saw a significant growth in the production of tea, green tea, which increased from about 50 million kilograms per year to almost 90 million kilograms per annum of green tea because of our intervention. Then we also moved strongly into food security, whereby we were distributing maize seed, bean seed, sorghum, and also cassava cuttings. We registered tremendous increase in the production of maize. Before we came in to support food security, maize production in the country was at around 2.5 million metric tons per annum. 2.5 million metric tons. Now, with our intervention under OWC, by 2019-2020, the production of maize had reached 5 million metric tons. That was a significant increase in production. Why? Because we came in to provide improved seed, hybrid seed, which were distributed across the country, and it was amazing to see how production has begun to increase. And we started facing a challenge of managing the excess maize production. And that is why we started engaging the Grain Council of Uganda, working with other players to build stores, to distribute maize mills, to be able to deal with the excess maize. We also saw our challenges, our maize being rejected in neighboring countries. So why? Because we had done a lot of work to ramp up production. We also saw a significant increase in the production of cassava. We saw a significant increase in fruits. And as a result of the increase in fruits, especially talking about mangoes and oranges, that is now when we came in to start to build factories. Listeners must be aware of the factory in Soroti, the famous Soroti fruit factory. That one came in as a result of the mangoes and oranges that we distributed in Eastern Uganda. There was a discussion about whether or not we planted the right mangoes for the factory. I would like to assure the listeners that
at one point we were actually being told the mangoes are coming from outside this country.
Not at all.
And even the oranges.
Not at all. Actually, the Soroti Food Factory is processing mangoes produced by our own farmers. And there was misinformation at one time that the mangoes are the wrong variety, but I would like to assure the listeners that the orange varieties, the citrus, are the right varieties. And as we speak now, the factory might be facing management challenges, but as the truth is that we planted the right varieties of mangoes and oranges, and this factory is beginning really to make business. We also built another factory in West Nile, which is soon to be commissioned, also based on our efforts of planting more mangoes. The Yumbe Food Factory is almost complete. Although that factory in Yumbe was initially to process the local mangoes we see in West Nile, but it is also going to be processing the improved mango varieties. So the people of West Nile, we are coming very soon to commission that factory. It's a modern factory, the biggest in the country, and it will be a great addition to our agro-industrialization effort. We have also established another factory in Kapeka here, which produces ready-to-drink juice, also based on the mangoes we planted, especially in central Uganda. So, as you can see now, our interventions are attending to the entire value chain, not only focusing on production, but also addressing the value addition aspects. So you can see that our journey has been metamorphosing, changing according to the needs and according to the changing landscape. So, to wrap it up, our journey has been phenomenal, and our footprint is across the country. There is no village in this country of Uganda where you will go and you don't find an intervention of NAADS. This intervention can be in the form of just knowledge, a farmer having acquired knowledge about a specific enterprise. The benefit could have been maybe this farmer having received some livestock, some seed, some planting material, or some value addition equipment. So we have been able to reach every corner of this country. And I can, without fear of contradiction, say that NAADS is one of the most successful and impactful interventions in the agriculture sector of post-independent Uganda because of our 20-year journey.
All right.
We had never had such a consistent intervention previously. We had disjointed interventions. You had of the Rural Agriculture Scheme of UCB. You had other interventions that were scattered here and there. But talking about consistent intervention year in, year out, I think NAADS has made a commendable job.
All right. Now, one of the things you hinted on that continues to challenge us even now is agricultural mechanization. That's one aspect you're supposed to look into. We still have a situation where people are complaining about lack of tractors. Mechanization basically is still very low. I also want you to comment on the issue of water for production, irrigation. I don't know if that is within your mandate and whether it's something that you're looking at. But there's also the challenge of value addition, like you said, agro-based industries. Too much production, even as we speak now. Maize, there's been bumper harvest if you look at the maize growing areas, but the farmers are stuck with low prices. And you might have also seen that issue coming in Parliament, with MPs also complaining about their constituents being stuck with maize that they can't sell at very low prices. Let's begin with the issue of mechanization.
Yeah, obviously, mechanization is a key element of agriculture commercialization. You cannot commercialize without mechanization. That is a fact. And as a country, we are struggling with low levels of mechanization. In Uganda, there are some districts until recently which never had even a single tractor. But as NAADS, we have so far distributed close to 500 tractors, where we made sure that each district at least has 1 or 2 tractors. So mechanization is going to be a long journey, which will take time for us to achieve levels that we would like to see. Mainly because our tractors are largely imported. And for that matter, they are expensive. And also, the cost of borrowing is still very high. Very few farmers can afford to borrow to buy a tractor. That is why government is saying now, since farmers are unable to buy tractors on their own, that's why we have a deliberate mechanization strategy as a Ministry of Agriculture, which NAADS also is contributing to. So we are progressively providing tractors to farmers and organized groups as a strategy to make sure that at least each district has a tractor. We would like even to move up to sub-county level. But beyond tractors, which are mainly for medium to large-scale farmers, we're also now talking about small working tractors, which are now being also considered as a way of bridging the gap. So, yes, you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that we address the issue of mechanization. And one of the areas that is being discussed is to interest investors who can come here and build a factory for tractors. It has been discussed at a high level. That is one way of bringing the cost of tractors to a manageable level. But I agree that we need to move faster and make sure we mechanize, because as we speak now, the greatest proportion of the land is tilled by a hoe, hand hoe, which cannot take us to a level where we want to be. But increasingly, we are making efforts as a ministry to mechanize. The Ministry of Agriculture has now set up regional mechanization centers where farmers can get tractors for hire, but also the distribution across the country is being undertaken. So it is something that the government is thinking about very, very seriously.
The issue of value addition. We have an industrial policy, and the lead there is agro-based industries. But we do not see many actually coming up at the moment. Like I gave you an example of people who are doing maize. We have had an issue with tea. Just as we speak now, there's a crisis about tea because our tea cannot move outside the country, and people are saying maybe it can be processed here. But even when you look at that side, we do not have many factories to actually do that. Even on the issue of coffee, still the same.
You are spot on, obviously. Now, the Uganda is still trapped in that raw material cycle that we are
raw material phase.
That we are producers of raw material. If you look at our coffee, it's exported mainly and not fully processed. Even our tea is not fully processed. But now, as a policy, we are moving towards having the final product in Uganda. If you talk about tea, for example, tea is facing a huge challenge for a number of reasons. One is that production has increased tremendously because of government effort, but it has not been matched with adequate strategies for value addition. Yes, the number of factories has increased for a fact. Because of this effort, we have seen the number of lines almost double what it was about 10 years ago. So yes, in terms of processing lines, especially if you go to Wenzori region, western parts of the country, we are seeing more lines of tea coming up and being established. But what we need to deal with is the quality of our tea. Because our tea is mainly sold at the auction in Mombasa, and if you look at the prices we are getting compared to our neighbors, we are still getting low prices. And this is a question of quality. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture, working with all stakeholders in government, we have prepared a detailed strategy of addressing the issues of tea across the country. We would like to call upon all farmers to be calm. We hear others are threatening to uproot the tea. Our message is, please do not uproot your tea, because tea is a generational crop that can live generation after generation. And therefore, this short time disruption or inconvenience or disappointment of prices should not lead anybody to take an unreasonable decision of cutting the tea. Right. Government is coming in to address it, and we are sure it will be resolved. If you come to maize, for example,
can we just go for a break? When we return, I'll allow you to begin there with the issues of factories, the interventions in particular to the maize subsector, but also be interested in knowing the transition where you moved again into Operation Wealth Creation. Some people don't differentiate between NAADS and Operation Wealth Creation. There are also other issues. New direction for NAADS, especially on high-value crops. How are farmers likely to benefit? But also, we are into a planting season. What advice would you give to the farmers? All this in the next segment of Spectrum as we continue to speak to Dr. Samuel Mugasi, the Executive Director, NAADS. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90 will continue after this break.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Thank you very much for staying with us on Spectrum, live on Radio 1 FM 90. My guest this evening is Dr. Samuel Mogasi, the Executive Director, NAADS, and we are looking at the 22-year journey of NAADS in addressing issues within the agriculture sector. We are looking at the milestones, but also challenges and opportunities going forward. Now, before we went for the break, Dr. Mogasi, you were talking about the issues of factories, and you tackled the issue of tea. You were about to embark on the issue of maize. Any steps towards value addition in the maize subsector there before we move on to another issue?
Yeah, thank you. Now, the maize value chain is a fairly well-established and growing value chain. The challenge we still face there is having adequate storage. Whereas we produce now close to 6-7 million metric tons of maize, our storage capacity is barely 1 million metric tons. So you can see the storage deficit. And also the processing capacity is still very, very low. So NAADS has come in at a lower level to provide maize mills which can help organized groups to add value to their maize, sell it as flour. But also we have supported groups with feed mills so they can use maize and other ingredients to produce animal feed. But also we have supported some organized groups with grain stores across different parts of the country. So that has been our contribution as NAADS in this value chain. But overall, the biggest issue we need to deal with is the quality of our maize for it to be accepted in international markets, in regional markets. And the issue that has been talked about is aflatoxin, which is an excuse, but a genuine excuse. But I'm glad to inform our listeners that our scientists in NARO have come up with a solution for addressing aflatoxin. Once that is addressed, then we shall be able to manage and really access external markets. But I would like to also thank the private sector. We are seeing a lot of private people coming in with their own resources to establish huge silos, add value, and that's the message we should be taking around, to say, to attract investors who can be able to strengthen this value chain. We can see if you move like now on Bombo Road, you see a lot of silos coming up. You know, if you go to northern Uganda. So the private players are coming in, and I have no doubt that in the next 4 or 5 years, we shall have adequate storage, adequate silos to be able to manage this growing value chain. So I'm not very, very afraid. Once we address the issue of aflatoxin, and we are seeing a growing number of investments in storage, value addition, and we shall be able to make a breakthrough. If you come to, you talked about water for production.
Water for production, irrigation.
Now, this is one of the, I think, the biggest and challenging areas we need to address as we face the challenge of climate change. As we speak now, we are receiving information from weather experts that we are going to face an unusually long, dry spell. And this at this point we need to be discussing water for production. While Uganda is well endowed with water, we have not taken advantage of this water to be able to utilize it at farm level. I visited a country where a farm was drawing water from a distance of 200 kilometers. Now in Uganda, I think on average each village is within reach of water not exceeding maybe 5 kilometers or so. So I think as a country we need to really come up with a strong strategy that takes advantage of our water resources to be able to deal with the challenge we face regarding water scarcity. But as NAADS, what we have done is to do demonstrations, especially using solar pumping systems. And we have so far established close to 200 demonstrations across the country to demonstrate the use of solar power to be able to do farm level mini irrigation. And farmers are beginning to realize that, look, with a simple solar system, you can be able to power your farm with irrigation and be able to increase your production and productivity. But at the ministry level, there is a whole department in charge of water for production that is trying to make sure that farmers are supported, especially with excavation of dams where water can be availed, with the irrigation systems. So government is trying within the available resources to make sure that farmers are supported with water for production. All right.
Now, let's look at the issue of value addition in detail. I'm looking at a document here where there's your output as you started working with Operation Wealth Creation, and you're talking about the heavy focus on value addition. Where is the footprint? What have you been able to do with Operation Wealth Creation in terms of value addition, looking at the different places in the country where you have implemented your activities, Dr. Mugase?
Thank you. Yeah. Let me start with the dairy value chain. Our footprint is strong along the dairy value chain, where we have been distributing especially milk coolers. These milk coolers are helping farmers to aggregate their milk, chill it, and market it at a better price. Because once the milk is chilled, it is preserved, its shelf life is increased, and farmers can be able to negotiate a better price. So we have distributed close to 200 milk coolers across the different parts of the country to support farmer groups. And this means that on a daily basis, these coolers are helping farmers to aggregate almost 500,000 liters per day through these coolers. But also what is interesting is that these coolers have created jobs. Each milk collecting center we have supported employs border riders, employs transporters, employs cleaners. So beyond just providing a cooler for a group X in Nakaseke, we are also helping to create jobs and help people have an income. That is on the milk. But beyond the milk coolers, we have also now gone to a higher level, whereby we have supported organized cooperatives with mini dairy processing equipment. These are equipment that are able to produce yogurt, cheese, and also pasteurized milk. We have so far done 5 of them in central Uganda, eastern, but also western Uganda. And this one is taking this effort to a higher level, just going just beyond collecting milk, but also adding value, which means these farmers are getting a better price, are getting more value for their milk. So leaving the dairy value chain, which is really very well organized and doing very well, if you come to maize, I have already talked about this, because we are no longer supporting production of maize.
All right.
We are now focusing on stores, maize mills, feed mills, to be able to add value and ensure that farmers are getting more income and more returns on their production.
All right, let's move into this phase of high value crops. When you talk about high value crops, what are you trying to promote in this particular regard?
Good question. Now, Uganda has been largely relying on 2 main export perennial crops, that is coffee and tea. Previously, we also had tobacco and cotton, but these ones are no longer, of any value. Our focus has largely been coffee and tea. We are now saying that we need to diversify our export base because of the opportunities that we see at the global market. That is why now we are talking about macadamia, we are talking about Hass avocado and cashew nuts. Because
there's a time when there was talk about vanilla. Everybody got into vanilla. And you know what happened?
I know. That's the same question.
Now macadamia, avocado.
Now, you see...
are we getting it right?
We have been careful. We have looked at the global markets. And I would like to assure our listeners that we will not fall in the same pit as vanilla. Why? Because let me give the example of Hass avocado. As we speak now in Uganda, listeners will be happy to learn that we have 5 factories already set up for avocado oil extraction. 5 factories. One is in Namambe here, another one is in Mabira, the third one is in Kapeka, here in Nakaseke, the 4th one is in Chenjojo, the 5th is in Kasese. All these are brand new factories that are extracting oil and exporting to Europe. So the question of market is almost answered. Now, that is deal with one side of the market, which is oil extraction. But you also have a growing market of exporting the fresh fruit, Middle East and Europe. So I would like to assure farmers that we are already addressing the question of the market for Hass avocado. Now, farmers and listeners would like also to know that avocado oil is soon going to be competing with olive oil, because production of olive oil is now beginning to decrease because of the effects of climate change in Europe. So we are beginning to think that moving into the future, avocado oil might be an alternative to the very expensive oil we usually use called olive oil. So the outlook is positive for avocado, and therefore farmers should not be worried about the market.
All right.
If you come to cashew nuts, the same. The market is growing. All we need to do is to address the production. One of the challenges farmers are facing now is to have the adequate knowledge, because while we are promoting Hass avocado, we would like to caution farmers not to rush into this crop unless they are sure that they have adequate knowledge. That's why we are moving cautiously, working with nucleus farmers to grow a network of outgrowers cautiously as we get more knowledge. Being a new crop, we need to be sure that farmers engage in what they know to avoid making losses.
All right,
but otherwise, it's a promising value chain.
All right, Dr. Mugasi, we are into the planting season now, and NAADS is well known for distributing seedlings and all kind of things. What are the plans you have for the farmers looking at this season?
Let me first make this clear that this time our interventions are on a cost-sharing basis. Previously, NAADS was known for giving free seedlings, free heifers, free goats, free mango seedlings, but now we have since changed because we think farmers should begin to have a sense of of ownership of what they engage in. Now, for avocado, macadamia, and cashew nuts, we are providing a seedling at a subsidized rate. The farmer pays 30%, and the government through NAADS pays 70%. And I would like to thank farmers who have come out strongly and are making a contribution and picking the seedlings. So as the season begins, we have already issued the orders for supply to our beneficiaries. Although now we are still facing this extreme weather, and we are cautioning farmers to be patient a bit as we wait to see the rains. But the distribution is soon beginning. Although with the limited budget, we are unable to reach all the farmers. We are therefore reaching a few farmers who are ready, who have been prepared. Hopefully, into the future, resources allowing, our plan is to plant at least 5 million seedlings in the next 5 years.
All right. Next 5 years, that's where you're looking at. But somebody will ask a question, will NAADS still be in place because of the plans by government to actually phase out some entities? When you look at the bill before Parliament, NAADS is in there.
Well, I would like to call upon our farmers not to look at Hass avocado vis-a-vis NAADS. Look at it as an enterprise that has been brought to you that will help you.
We're looking at all these things that you've been able to do.
Whether NAADS is there or not, if NAADS is not there tomorrow, there will be a way, I can assure you, on how farmers will be supported. This mainstreaming mergers do not have are not coming to put an end to agriculture as a sector. No. Therefore, let's not be worried. I want to assure our farmers that this intervention will go on because the government has identified it as a key strategic enterprise that must be supported.
All right.
Yeah.
We have feedback coming in from the listeners, and I'll begin with this comment from Ariko. Ariko Andrew is listening in from Tororo. I feel like crying because the seedlings supplied by NAADS are producing products that keep rotting, and yet our oranges used to be resistant to so many issues. Soroti Fruit Factory is not buying from Teso, and I pray to our Heavenly Father to at least increase the size of hell, because many government workers are booking space. Also, we are producing and our products are being rejected because of poor drying method, yet government is busy giving people money that could be used for buying dryers for every village. That's a comment coming in from Ariko there. We have another comment from Henry. What is NAADS strategy on promoting fruit trees? I am growing fene on my 3 acres in Zrowe, but I have never seen any extension worker. Then another comment from another listener. NAADS, what is your intervention on Cascat Doda, yellow plant, which is killing our vegetation in the whole country, yet NAADS officials are busy swinging on rocking chairs? Well, those are comments that are coming in. Somebody else writes in and says, cotton in Tanzania is 5,000 Tanzania shillings per kilo. In Uganda, it's 2,500 shillings. What is the difference between Uganda and Tanzania? That is Mawa Jacob Amaza, who is listening in from Moyo West. Then we have another comment. Teso was once a cattle rearing community. Why not revive that industry? Because oranges, macadamia, and cashew nuts are a scam. Kentan farmers are struggling with no market for macadamia. Well, we have got some feedback there from the listeners. Dr. Mugasi, if you can respond to some of those, and we'll see if we have another round for you to respond to.
Yeah, the first call about Teso fruits, take heart, my brother, and you know, God forgives sinners, so he will not take us to hell. But let me assure listeners that Soroti Fruit Factory, I have been there many times, is processing mangoes from rather oranges from the area. We have 2 main varieties, Valencia and Hamlin, and these are the varieties that are being processed in that factory. So that one I should clarify. Then the other question was there were quite a number. The second question?
The second question was actually talking about your strategy on fruit trees. Someone is growing fene in Zimbabwe,
yes,
but they have never seen an extension worker to provide any sort of guidance.
Yeah. Well, we usually have what we call priority crops. If you talk of fruits, it is mainly mangoes, oranges, apples,
Juices.
pineapples. Okay.
For producing juices.
Yeah, juices. So you'll have other fruits like fene, which unfortunately are not given adequate attention. But I see fene is becoming a delicacy. You will find
it
fene
is
on
every
the
corner
on the
around
street.
town. People are selling fene.
So I think that is a good question, and I think as extension workers, scientists should pick interest in fene.
You should actually pick interest in it
and
as a
see how we
ministry.
can propagate it. So, and I know there are some farmers who are growing it at commercial level. So that's a good question, and I think we should find a way of including it and supporting it where it is growing. Then the other one?
The other comment is about yellow plant, the Cascat Doda, that is killing the vegetation in the whole country.
Yeah, that's
somebody thinks you are rocking in your chairs in the office.
Yeah,
while trouble is everywhere.
I understand the frustration of farmers when they are not getting adequate help. I'm taking note of this, and we shall check which district is that. He
didn't specify the district, but going by this comment, that is in Tororo.
Yeah,
is in Tororo district.
We will get feedback on this and talk to our friends in Tororo about this challenge.
All right. Somebody else wrote in and said Teso was once a cattle rearing community. Why not revive that industry instead of pushing mangoes, macadamia, cashew nuts? which I think is a scam.
Absolutely. I think this is not a scam. I think let's not use extreme words. Because, by the way, macadamia and avocado were not introduced by NAADS in this country. I want to make it clear that NAADS came in to support an already moving initiative. Now, we have one of the biggest macadamia farms in the country. It is here in Mitiana and many others. One of the biggest plantations of avocado is in Mayuge. These farmers started on their own. So when you talk of Hass avocado macadamia, it's not an introduction of NAADS. NAADS is coming in to support farmers because realize they are moving on their own and they need support in terms of expansion of the crop, but also supporting value addition and marketing. So our role really is to facilitate the promotion and expansion of this crop.
All right.
And I would like to assure listeners that this is not a scam, but it is an intervention that farmers should take advantage of. Now, Teso being cattle rearing, the gentleman is spot on, and cattle rearing still remains an important enterprise in Teso area. The mangoes that we are talking about and these fruits are part of what we call enterprise mix diversification. You cannot rely on one enterprise. Nothing stops a cattle farmer from growing mangoes. If anything, they complement each other. If you have cattle, you have manure that you put in your mango orchard. So we encourage farmers to do enterprise mix to do, otherwise you cannot survive on one crop. So when we talk of mangoes in eastern and oranges in Teso, we are not saying stop rearing cows, but we are saying that there is need for enterprise mix. There is a need to diversify sources of income at farm level.
NAADS Operation Wealth Creation, where does one start and where the other one stops? Which farmers were benefiting from the avocado factory with value being added than just selling the fruits to the foreign-owned companies? Those are our last comments that have come in from the listeners.
Let me start with the last one. Very good question. Obviously, farmers get a better price by selling the fresh fruit. When you talk about the factories, we are not looking at them as the main or the only source of market for the farmers. We encourage our farmers. Number one option in terms of marketing is the fresh fruit, which is exported to the international markets at a good price. Our factories are only taking mainly the rejects or what we think can to be exported. And as we speak now, by the way, these factories are mainly processing the local avocado, the one we see in our markets in Karerwe, here in Nakasero. So yes, the factories don't mean that we are not accessing the markets for fresh fruits internationally. And then OWC, this is a question that we have been answering over and over again, and I think it's a genuine question. Now, OWC, or what we call Operation Wealth Creation, is a bigger national intervention. As the name goes, it is an intervention that has come in to help steer the wealth creation effort.
All right.
And the NAADS is just part of this effort.
All right.
Otherwise, OWC is a bigger framework, a bigger intervention.
All right. Time is always not our good ally, but I do thank you very much, Dr. Samuel Mogasi, Executive Director, NAADS, for sparing time to come and talk to our listener. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, dear listeners, for contributing to this discussion. Your views helped us to shape the discussion here in studio. Tomorrow, same time, another topic will be on air. But now, back to the newsroom, where we are going to have the news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, we'll continue with our quality programming with BB Junior bringing you the Soul Train. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. We wish you a good evening.